Please be seated. At the close of our Generations of Giving Stewardship campaign, Terry and the vestry had the great idea of bringing someone out from the Diocese of Chicago to talk to us about stewardship and about the gospel, obviously. So it's my pleasure to welcome, you're probably wondering, who was that sitting up there with her? Courtney Reid from the Diocese. She works with our bishops and has a whole lot to say today about our gifts. So welcome, Courtney, and thank you so much for being with us today.
Great to be here. Good morning.
Good morning.
It is always an honor and a pleasure to be able to join one of our congregations all around the diocese on a Sunday. It's what makes the work I do as Director of Operations an incredible joy and blessing to see the wide breadth and diversity of our diocese, which, as you know, stretches from between the states of Indiana and Illinois all the way down the Illinois River to the town of Griggsville, where I was just a few weeks ago, as far west as Galena to Kankakee, and it's just delightful to be here in Wheaton this weekend. I used to live in Aurora many years, over 20 years ago, so I recognize these roads, although they've really grown since I left, but it's just terrific to be here. And I bring you greetings from all of the bishop's staff and our Bishop Jeff, our Bishop Chris, and John. So thank you for the invitation, and again, it is just a joy to be here this morning. Find the beginning. No one was able to give him an answer, nor from that day did anyone dare to ask him any more questions. If you recall, the gospel readings over the past several weeks have been a verbal sparring back and forth between Jesus and the religious leaders of the temple, chief priests, rabbis, Sadducees, Pharisees, all of them playing a game of gotcha with Jesus, trying to trip him up, trying to catch him in an error, a misstatement, some sort of heresy. But amidst all the words, and there have been lots of them from these leaders, are punctuations of silence. Silence when the chief priests and elders have to tell Jesus they don't know the answer to a question. The silence of the wedding guest, who a couple of weeks ago we heard did not have on the proper garment and fell silent when questioned by the king. And today our gospel opens with the silence as the Sadducees had fallen silent. And at the end, when they walk away, saying, from this day forward, they ask Jesus no more questions. Silence at the words of this carpenter's son from Galilee, silenced by his teaching, silenced by love, I believe. Silenced by the one who took thousands of years of law, 613 laws to be exact, laws that these leaders had studied deeply, had ingrained within themselves. One of those laws with which they began each day. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, your mind, and your strength. The words of Deuteronomy, the Shema, the opening prayer for those Jews. And Jesus said today, this is the first law. Love the Lord your God. And the part they weren't quite expecting. The second law is like it. The second is the same. Love your neighbor as yourself. On these commandments hang all the laws and the prophets. Love God with your whole heart, mind, and soul. Love your neighbor. Love yourself. I believe that every time we say amen, that we are saying yes to a love affair with God. A mind-blowing, beautiful, overwhelming, challenging, sometimes infuriating relationship. Because that's what love is, isn't it? It's not always easy. It can be glorious, and it can be hard. And this love affair with God, I believe, happens in 3 acts. Act 1, love of self. Imagine yourself alone on the stage, a single light, and it all begins here with a voice. I love you. I desire you. I love you with your faults and imperfections. I love you. I made you in my image. I want you to feel my love wash over you and fill you so much that you love your very self. I love you not in spite of your faults. I love you because you are you. I love you, the you that gets angry at your kids and your spouse, the you that doesn't always honor her commitments, the you that was up all night worrying about an ill parent, the you that is frazzled and sometimes barely feels is hanging on. My own understanding of the power of this love of self grew just a few weeks ago when I had the privilege of meeting Becca Stevens, the founder of Magdalene House and a chaplain at Vanderbilt University. Nearly 20 years ago, Becca opened a home for 5 women, just down the street from where she and her family lived. A home for women who are survivors of sex trafficking, prostitution, abuse, often, most nearly always, struggling with addiction. The women lived together for 2 years, free of charge, with no resident staff. During that time, they rest and heal, and they take advantage of an array of free community services. And they learn to love themselves, to love the full total of who they are, to love themselves wounded and scarred, healing and forgiving. With Becca were 2 women, Ty and Jennifer, who are part of the Magdalene community, which now has grown to 5 houses in Nashville and similar communities in other cities. And as they told their healing stories, they spoke too of how they learned to love and accept themselves, how they grew to know that they were beloved of God and worthy of that love, no matter what their past, what their present, what their future. What is it like for you to feel God's love, God's deep, abiding, unbending, unconditional love that just washes over and through you? God's love that allows you to love yourself. Act 2, love of neighbor. The stage gets more crowded, the light grows. That love for self flows out to others. As Becca Stevens writes in one of her books, Find Your Way Home, the heart becomes broadened with unutterable sweetness of love. The love that welcomes all the folks we've encountered in the Gospels over the last few weeks. The laborer who worked all day and the laborer who worked just 1 hour. Those on the streets invited to the wedding, the outcast and poor, the stranger and the friend. Those whom our own society and our 24-hour news cycle tells us to fear, whether it's the Republicans, the Democrats, those with Ebola, young men of color, the homeless. Jesus tells us all are welcome. All are to be loved. While we often say the opposite of love is hate, I would argue that it's fear. It's fear that keeps us isolated from one another, that hardens our hearts, that keeps us from loving and serving. Instead, by embracing love and love of neighbor, by filling your heart with love, you're called to serve, to give, to share. And as you care for those in your midst, you recognize the need to draw that circle ever wider. In your own ministries here at Trinity, tangibly demonstrate this love, your connections with one another, your commitment to pads, your support of the crop walk, your labor with Habitat for Humanity, your giving of time and service and treasure allows that love of neighbor to be made manifest. Whether it's here within your own community, in the broader expanse of our diocese, or in the places throughout the world that need our love, our support, and our ministry, you broaden that circle. Each day at Magdalene House, the women gather in a circle. They use that time to share their fears, their concerns, their hopes, and their joys. And they light a candle. They light a candle for the next woman who will join their community, their next neighbor, whom they will welcome with love. Who do you light that candle for? Who might you welcome next? It is in loving our neighbors that we are meeting God. Which brings us to Act 3. Love of God. The stage is bursting at the seams because it is this love of self and love of neighbors in which our love of God is made manifest. Loving God with our whole heart, mind, and soul is made visible. In loving our neighbors, we are meeting God. In loving those on the margins, we are meeting God. How many times have you heard the phrase, there, or said, there but for the grace of God, go I? Becca Stevens suggests, rather than that, why don't we try, there goes God. The ones whom God calls us to love, pouring ourselves out for the neighbor, showing that love for God in the actions we take. The curtain doesn't fall on this love affair, on these 3 acts. The stage gets bigger and more full. The love grows and expands. The first commandment is this: love the Lord your God with your whole heart, mind, and soul. And the second is like it: love your neighbor as yourself. My prayer this day for all of us is that our love for self, for neighbor, for God may grow and expand and may be made manifest in all that we do and give and share. Amen.